All right. And when did you first know that you wanted to be a race car driver?
Tough question. Probably growing up, around 14 to 15 years old, kind of got into it. I hadn't really been into it that much beforehand, and started coming down here with watch my brother, and just really got into it around that age, and eventually raced go-karts within the next 2 or 3 years, and went on to sprint cars when I was about 20 years old, so about 6 years later, and just kind of knew at 14 or 15 that I was going to be one, no matter whether I liked it or not. It's just in the family, very addictive, and just got drawn into it.
So tell me about your dad's racing. What do you remember of that, or had he given up long before you came along and were aware of it?
Don't really remember much of it. Just remember he was a bit of a wild man. Caught the last part of his career, and he kind of got out of it just as I was getting old enough to watch, to put Kerry in, and he was a big part of Kerry's career, and then played a big part in my career as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Your mum was, I would imagine, a pretty big part of your racing career as well. How long ago was it that she passed away?
1999, 15 years ago now. She was very much into Kerry's racing and one of his biggest fans, and she probably knew one day I'd go on to race as well, so hopefully she'd be pretty proud today, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, imagine it. Two kids from St Mary's, from Sydney's West, not that there's anything wrong with St Mary's, are now top 5 and probably top 20 in the world now.
Yeah, it's pretty unreal when you think about it. It was only 3 or 4 years ago where I kind of felt like throwing it in because it didn't feel like it was getting anywhere, and then to be where I am today is pretty unbelievable, and I just have to scratch myself sometimes.
I wouldn't imagine it's been easy. Some would say it's glamorous and all that sort of stuff, but you would know the other side of that. A lot of pressure.
Oh, definitely not glamorous. Even in America, people might think it's glamorous, but you're traveling, doing 3 or 4 races a week, living from hotel to hotel. It's fun, and I wouldn't give it up, but it's definitely not glamorous, and it's been a tough road, and I'm glad I did it, and it's very satisfying to be where I am today.
In a perfect world, Ian, your race results would just speak for themselves and your phone would ring off the hook. But the reality, I would imagine, is pretty different. You have to sell yourself to an owner, don't you?
You definitely do. Race results, they do help, but I've really learned in the past couple of years on the other side of it to be more professional, and definitely, how to carry myself a lot more professional, and I think that's paid off more than actually any of my results did.
What a remarkable achievement to have won a track championship that your brother won, and also that Skip Jackson won. We've had a pretty good run in America at Knoxville, in particular us Aussies.
Yeah, definitely. Knoxville seems to be the place to go when Australians want to go over there, and it seems to draw all the Australians in, and it's pretty much like a second home for a lot of Australians. Skip Jackson, my brother, a lot of Australians paved the way for guys like myself, and it's very prestigious to win the Knoxville Championship, and for myself and my brother, and it's a pretty cool achievement.
You said at the banquet that you were more nervous at the speech than you were wrapping up the championship. Is that true?
Yeah, that's definitely true. It was pretty nerve-wracking being in 200 or 300 people at the banquet doing the speech.
Your brother and you have a very strong relationship. I would imagine that you're both very important. I always watch him from the outside, keeping an eye out for you. How often do you talk?
We probably talk 5 times a day, every day. It can get pretty lonely over travelling around in the US, sprint car racing, so it's good to have him there, and he's more like my best friend than my brother, so definitely big supporters of each other's racing.
He has really evolved into something quite corporate these days. I remember when he was racing here, he was raw, much like your dad. He had a pretty fierce temper, an amazing passion for racing, but he probably didn't understand anywhere near like he does now the importance of presenting the global image.
Definitely not, and the sport's come such a long way in all aspects in the last 10 to 15 years as well, so I think that's played a big part of it, and you just learn to be a better person as it goes on.
What scares you in racing?
Not performing well. That's pretty much it.
What does that lead to? What is it that scares you about that?
Obviously the whole industry's pretty much performance based, and I do it for a living now as well, so if you're, especially in America, it's very cutthroat over there. There's a lot more drivers than there is rides, and if you don't perform well, you're not gonna you're not going to keep your ride, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Has it been, would you have done it any differently? If you could choose again, Ian, how the ride has been for you so far in sprint car racing, and some of the rides you've had to take and some of the chances. I remember taking you to Mildura Hospital with burns, you know, running a World Series show once. Would you do it any differently if you could, or has it all been part of making you who you are?
I mean, I wouldn't lie, I definitely made a ton of mistakes along the way, but I think that's all helped to get where I'm at today, and I definitely wouldn't change anything anything at all. You know, I feel like I could have carried myself a lot better early on in my career, but...
In what way?
Just off the track, just definitely talking to people and sponsors and you know, the media, and it's just as big a part of performing well. So, and if you're not performing well, it definitely helps to be the best you can off the track to help please everyone that's involved in your deal.
What are your strengths as a driver?
I don't know, mate. You probably have to ask the mechanics or the owners.
Why should a team like your team, like KCP Racing, why did they and why should they have picked you up?
Well, I just think that I think I put a large part of my life into it. I think if you dedicate yourself to something, one day something will pop up, and I feel like everything happened for a reason, and I was just very thankful to get picked up by the KCP Racing team when I did, and it's definitely been a life-changing experience for me.
What would you do differently as a driver? Like, how do you feel as a driver you've matured? Forget the off-track stuff. What about on it?
I definitely just think I've progressed every year and got better and better. Still have a few weaknesses here and there. I feel like America's obviously played a big part of it, and going over there every year, I just feel like I get better and better.
Yeah, fair enough. What is it about these things? Why are they so addictive? Why do you have to get back in them?
I don't know. It's a good question, mate. I wish I had the answer for that one. I might not have dedicated my whole life to it, but they're just it's just an awesome sport to be around. The winning, just every time you win, it's just such an awesome feeling, and just the actual racing. I just every time I'm not racing, I'm up at the fence trying to watch every race I can, just because I'm just such a big fan of the sport.
When you're at a place like Knoxville, which is so big and so fast, is there any time at all to enjoy the ride during the ride, or do you get back in the pits later and go, "Oh man, that was cool"?
Not really. I mean, you know, you're just so focused on performing and doing the best you can for your team, and you don't really notice it that much. But occasionally, you know, when it gets right up on the fence and the fence is whizzing by you at 140 mile an hour, you do notice it. But I think for the most part, you're just so focused on the job ahead that you kind of lose track of all the excitement of it.
There's so many kids that race here, and I say kids, teenagers that race here, and they all dream of becoming a professional sprint car driver. Do you have any advice?
Definitely just learn how to apply yourself off the racetrack. Just be the most presentable you can for your sponsors and your car owner, and I think that'll play a big part of it. There's so many, the talent in Australia right now from kids 18 to 25 years old is ridiculous, and it's just going to be interesting to see which ones take the next step and take it further.
Do people in Australia know just how good Kerry is and what he's achieved, particularly this year?
I think they do. It's been a long road for him as well, and I think this year probably opened up a lot of people's eyes over there. Obviously, winning the King's Royal is just a massive feat in itself, and third in the Knoxville Nationals. So I definitely think they know.
You talked about loneliness on the road. It's made it a little bit easier for you, given that you've got your beautiful Kate goes everywhere with you. How does that make it better?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. She come over there for the most part of this season, so it was cool to have her traveling around with me most times, and then I have Kerry on the road a lot of the times as well. So it's pretty nice.
Finish this sentence for me, Ian. I race because I love to win. I love the competitiveness of the sport, and I just want to be the best I can. And I race because every year I'm improving myself, and I want to see how far I can get. What's the dream? What is how far you can get?
obviously the Knoxville Nationals is the big dream, and I dream of winning that race one day, and I want to hopefully, I know it's a long shot, but I'd like to do that before my career's out.
So an Australian can win that race, you think?
Definitely. I think everything's evened up in America so much that I think an Australian's definitely capable of winning the races. You've only got to look down here anymore when the Americans, they come down here and they don't dominate like they did.
Yeah.
Australia's got very competitive in the last 10 years, and I think it's the King's Royal. I think it's only a matter of time before we're knocking on the door for Knoxville.